Right, so yes, I'm Emma. I'm Senior Sustainability Officer, Design and Construction. I am also a trained planner. So when I started work at the council, I was actually working as a planning policy officer, and the North West Cambridge Area Action Plan was probably one of the first planning policy documents that I worked on with a colleague when I started at the council. So what I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about is how we used local plan policies and then ultimately an area action plan policy to promote the use of sustainable drainage systems and water sensitive urban design. It is kind of focused on the role of planning policy, so if you'll excuse the pun, it hopefully won't be too dry. But it just gives you an idea of, set a bit of context for the North West Cambridge development and how we got to the policies that are there. So to give you a little bit of context about the drivers behind the development of the Area Action Plan and the policies within it related to sustainable drainage. I think Stuart's going to come on to some of this a little bit later on as well. The North West Cambridge project has been developing for quite a long time, I think since the kind of late 90s. In terms of kind of local plan policy, the real starting point, the catalyst for this development was the 2003 Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Structure Plan. Structure plans are no more, but that document basically set the principles for the release of certain areas of land from the Cambridge Greenbelt. So that kind of set some overarching principles for Cambridge that set about a kind of new level of growth in the city that the city had not seen for quite some time. And following on from the structure plan, we produced the 2006 Cambridge Local Plan, and that was the document that released part of the land at the North West Cambridge development for developments. It released it from the Greenbelt, along with a number of urban extensions around Cambridge. So that plan was looking at 12,500 new homes in Cambridge in the period from 1999 to 2016. Biggest period of growth that Cambridge had really seen for quite a long time, for about 40 years. 6,500 of those homes were in land to be released from the Greenbelt. Now, this level of growth presented quite an exciting opportunity for Cambridge to really promote some high quality, innovative new development. And to help to try and promote that and set some kind of high level objectives for the quality of growth that we wanted to see, not just in Cambridge, but the Cambridgeshire area as a whole. The local authorities in the area, working with an organisation called Cambridgeshire Horizons, who are no more, but we developed what is called the Cambridgeshire Quality Charter for Growth. And that is a document that basically sets out key priorities and key objectives for the Cambridgeshire area to achieve high level or high quality growth. And that is set around what we call the 4 Cs. So we have climate, character, connectivity and community. And within each of those 4 Cs, it sets some high level principles of what we want to see from growth around the Cambridgeshire area. And that charter recognised the role that SUDS and water sensitive urban design has to play in delivering really high quality developments and kind of having multiple benefits, so not just in terms of drainage, but benefits in terms of enhancing the amenity value and desirability of new developments, biodiversity enhancement and all that sort of thing. So that was the first time really that kind of sustainable drainage kind of came onto the agenda of the Cambridgeshire authorities. We also had a bit of evidence-based work that was carried out as well to help inform the growth agenda. So we had a strategic flood risk assessment carried out, but we also, possibly a bit more importantly, where sustainable drainage is concerned, we had a county-wide water cycle strategy produced. The Phase 1 document, which was published in 2008, that basically found that in terms of drainage there were and water infrastructure, there were no major constraints to growth, but that sustainable drainage systems needed to be encouraged. And I think for Cambridge as well, it's important to note that we do face some quite particular challenges related to surface water drainage, which again has really pushed our promotion of sustainable drainage, and that is that our watercourses have no capacity to take additional surface water runoff. So for us, you know, the 2006 local plan doesn't have a standalone SUDS policy, but it had a policy in there that started to encourage the use of SUDS in these growth areas that we had. So that was kind of the starting point for us. A little bit now about the North West Cambridge development. I don't know how much any of you guys know about it, and again I know Stuart's going to come into a lot more detail about some of this. But it is a major mixed-use development on land that was released from the Greenbelt specifically to meet the needs of the University of Cambridge. It is 3,000 new homes, half of which are going to be key worker homes for the University of Cambridge and college staff. There are academic facilities and university-related research. There is a fantastic new primary school that opened in September. We've got a local centre, supermarket, community facilities, and significant amounts of green infrastructure. It's a large-scale strategic site. As I mentioned earlier, the 2006 local plan released land from the Greenbelt in Cambridge for the development, but there was still some land in South Cambridgeshire that needed to be released. So that's why we decided to produce an area action plan. Because of the large-scale nature of the site, it also allowed for that land in South Cambridgeshire to be released from the Greenbelt as well. So the North West Cambridge Area Action Plan, we started work on this document back in 2005. We adopted it in 2009, so it's quite a long process. But by producing this document, we were able to produce a lot more detailed site-specific policy guidance than we would have been able to do in a local plan. Local plans, by their nature, are quite high-level documents, but the Area Action Plan actually allowed us to set some site-specific kind of development management type policies for this site. So it identifies a vision and key objectives for the development, and as part of the vision was this idea of creating an exemplar of sustainable living that was able to accommodate the impacts of our changing climate. And how did we express that? Well, we've got a number of policies in the Area Action Plan. So we have a sustainable design and construction policy that requires the vast majority of the development to be brought forward at level 5 of the now defunct Code for Sustainable Homes. We have a BREEAM excellent requirement for all non-residential development on the site. Some of the infrastructure that is going into the scheme at the moment, there's gas-fired district heating going in to enable it to meet the Code level 5 requirement. And I think a really important part of the policy that I think has been a real driver for the water-sensitive urban design approach that we're now seeing on this site are the water efficiency requirements that sit behind Code Level 5, which is basically 80 litres per person per day, which is about half or even below half of the national average. So that was actually one of the elements of policy that has helped to kind of be a catalyst for this water-sensitive urban design approach that we have. I won't say much more about that system because I think others will come on to that a little bit later on. So this is just an extract of the specific surface water drainage policy that we have in the Area Action Plan. This is the first time that we developed a planning policy specifically requiring the use of sustainable drainage systems. Before then, it had been more about encouraging their use, but this is the first time that we've got a specific policy requirement. So it talks about how surface water drainage is to be designed as a sustainable drainage system, holding water on the site, and to be designed and integrated into the development to deliver multiple benefits. What I would say is that the University of Cambridge had full support for this policy from day one of the Area Action Plan. They always wanted to deliver a really high quality SUD scheme for this site, so it was actually fantastic to have their support for the development of this policy, because as I will come on to next, we did have some challenges. As you can imagine, with a site of this scale, Drainage has always been a big area of concern for local residents, some of whom, I think Simon will agree, are quite knowledgeable to an extent on drainage in their area. They know a lot about the various past events of flooding in the area. So we did get some challenges to the policy. A lot of them challenged the idea that sustainable drainage was actually a viable and suitable solution for the site. The whole reason behind that being that the site has got quite high water table. So a lot of residents didn't think that you would be able to use suds. But I think what we've kind of learnt from that is actually promoting to local residents that there are a wide range of sustainable drainage systems available for use, and to try and stop them from focusing in on just a few particular methods. There was also frustration over the lack of detail in the area action plan, and we get this a lot in planning policy. People want to see, where the roads are going, where's the access going to be. People actually wanted to know in the area action plan what types of sustainable drainage systems were going to be used. And I think it's also getting across that these documents, by their very nature, they're quite high level documents. They're setting strategic requirements, and they're never going to go into the detail of how to actually design a sustainable drainage scheme. But as I say, we had full support of the University of Cambridge as landowner, and actually, interestingly, the drainage strategy for the site is not something that was considered at the examination in public. So it wasn't something that the inspector felt needed to be examined. So that wasn't covered at all, which is quite interesting, despite some of the objections that we had, and I think we've dealt with those over time, working quite closely with the residents. They've remained quite involved, I think it's fair to say, in the whole process. So just a little bit now, I suppose, for me on how our development of the North West Cambridge Area Action Plan has helped to inform our future policy direction. A little bit about the site, and again, I won't go into much on this because others will cover it, but outline planning approval was granted in 2013. Reserve matters applications for phase 1 are well underway. Construction is well underway. The primary school has opened, as I mentioned earlier, so the site is under construction now. What we have learned from this is the importance of evidence base. So we did have some evidence base. We had our strategic flood risk assessment and water cycle strategies when we were developing the last local plan. But since then, we've done a lot more in the way of detailed surface water modelling. So we have a Cambridge and Milton surface water management plan. So that's given us a really robust evidence base for why sustainable drainage is so important for the Cambridge area. So what we have now done is we've basically taken what we've learnt from the North West Cambridge site, and in fairness, all of the other urban extensions around the city, all of whom are using sustainable drainage systems, not quite in the same way as the North West site, but we've taken that and translated all of our learning into a draft policy in our new local plan. And that policy is basically requiring the use of sustainable drainage for all scales of development. So slightly different to a national planning policy framework, which focuses in more on major development. We're applying it to all scales of development. We include requirements in there for priority to be given to the use of nature services, that water is seen as a resource and is reused on sites. Water-sensitive approach is taken to the design of developments. It promotes multifunctionality in designing surface water features. We also have a requirement in there for all flat roofs in the city to be either green or brown roofs. This draft plan is currently undergoing examination. We submitted the plan for examination in 2014. And we're partway through our actual examination sessions. We haven't yet come on to the examination of this specific policy, but I think it will come. We do have a few objections to it, notably around the use of green and brown roofs, and some feeling that they can't be used on specific types of development. So it's an interesting approach being taken there. What we've also done as a city council, because we think it's important for us to be seen to be helping to promote the use of sustainable drainage through other means, is that we have taken an approach whereby the City Council will adopt sustainable drainage systems where these are provided in public open spaces that we adopt. So we have produced a sustainable drainage design and adoption guide that we ask developers to look to and to meet when they're designing SUDs in public open spaces, and if they are designed to the requirements within that guide, we will then adopt that. And we saw that as quite an important approach in helping to promote the use of sustainable drainage amongst developers, and I think it's been quite successful. What we're also doing now as well, there's colleagues from Cambridgeshire County Council here, we're working with the County Council and other district authorities in the local area to produce a county-wide water and flooding supplementary planning document, which has got chapters on sequential test. It's also got a chapter on the use of sustainable drainage as well. So we're producing some detailed guidance to, again, continue to promote the use of sustainable drainage in new developments. And I think that's probably quite a speedy run-through from me. But yeah, that kind of sets a bit of context, hopefully, for the rest of the presentations this afternoon.